author of a number of books about forbidden archaeology, co-author with Sadhpuja Prabhu, and then several on his own. He is widely traveled speaker and scholar on this subject, and has been featured on national television programs such as Alien Identities and others. Very happy to have you with us this morning, Prabhu. Thank you. We also are very fortunate to have His Grace Akhandadi Prabhu. I think he's a little better known to most of you here because of his recent seminars on qualia and other esoteric topics of consciousness. Very happy that you could join us this morning. And our exalted godbrother, of course, Vaninath Vasu Prabhu, who was coaxed to give a kirtan this morning, much to our joy. Thank you. So our speaker this morning will be His Holiness Krishna-ksetra Swami. Krishna-ksetra Maharaj is an American-born devotee who joined Krishna consciousness in Germany, correct? So he has been serving in Europe since the 70s. We first met at that time in Schloss Retterschaft, I believe. Yeah. I believe so, yeah. Back in 74 or 5 or 6, thereabouts. So Krishna-ksetra Maharaj has had many distinguished years as a brahmachari, preacher, teacher in Europe, and subsequently took sannyas and then entered the arena of scholastic preaching. He has obtained his doctorate in, Hinduism, or what is the field exactly? Religious studies. Okay, so don't call him Maharaj, call him doctor, or he'll be insulted. No, actually, Maharaj has now entered this field and done very well as a graduate of the Oxford Center for Hindu Studies, and he now has all the credentials needed to go toe-to-toe with scholars of Hinduism all over the world. So he's presenting a number of let's see, I'm trying to remember your books. What is? You rub elbows, a little more civilized. Schmooze. All right, well that is something Srila Prabhupada wanted very much. Devotees should be recognized as scholars and able to help define the understanding of our tradition amongst the academic community. So Maharaj has done a great service in taking all this up, and he is here to guide us this morning in Srila Prabhupada's remembrance on his disappearance day. Thank you very much, Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Jaya Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Jaya Gopi Janavana Bhagiri Bhadan Hari Gopi Janavalabha Girivanan Hari Yashoda Nandana Vrachachana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Vrachachana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Gopi Janavalabha Girivardhari Yashoda Nandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Haribo, 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 Gaur Haribo. Srila Prabhupada ki, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki, Shri Shri Gaur Nitai ki, Krishna House ki, Gaur Premanande. Actually, let's see. So, I'm so happy to be back in Krishna House. You may not believe this, but I lived here for 1 semester while I was teaching across the street. You remember 2006, yes. That was it, yeah. Times have changed for the better. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatari Mancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanusute Dehi Pranamami Hari Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. This morning I thought for appropriate to the occasion of Srila Prabhupada Tirobhava Titi. Sometimes devotees say we're celebrating the disappearance day of Srila Prabhupada. I don't personally like to call it a celebration. I like to think of it as an observance. Maybe observance is not the perfect word, but somehow celebration doesn't work for me. But on this day of observing Prabhupada's departure in 1977, I thought it's nice to hear Prabhupada some part of a lecture that he gave at a university. Since we're here at a university, I thought it's interesting how he spoke at Brandeis University in Boston. Have you given any talks in Brandeis? I've never been there myself. Srila Prabhupada begins, this was in April of 1969. And so it's still quite early in his preaching mission. And he begins apparently after a kirtan, which went on, he says, for approximately exactly half an hour. He says that in the lecture. So then he recites the mantra, which perhaps many of you know. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master, who has opened my eyes of ignorance with the torch of knowledge. Shalaka is a sharp device, apparently, and chakshu unmilitam, opening of the eyes. Who is doing this opening? It is the Guru. This is from the Gautamiya Tantra. Interesting text. Then he begins, he says, my dear boys and girls, I thank you very much for participating in our Sankirtan. It is very simple. Chanting the 16 words, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. Actually, there are only 3 words, Hare, Krishna, and Rama. So what I find fascinating about the beginning of this lecture is how Srila Prabhupada pitches himself right into his message in a very straightforward way, in a very inviting way, encouraging. So then he says, it is not difficult. Everyone can immediately, within seconds, can chant these 3 names, Hare Krishna and Rama. But to make it still easier and suitable, they have been arranged in 2 lines of 8 words each line. That is very rhythmic. And one feels immediately transcendental pleasure to chant. And then he goes on, it is not hackneyed. Has anyone ever heard this word hackneyed? You don't use it very often, do you? Unless you're talking about a very boring professor, I guess. It is not hackneyed. We have chanted about exactly half an hour. But if we chant even 24 hours, we'll never feel tired. That is the significance, practical. Now notice, Prabhupada is already kind of suggesting that although he's saying, it's a fun thing, it's easy, anyone can do it, and it's not boring, he's saying you could do it for 24 hours. And, yes, there are devotees who chant Hare Krishna practically 24 hours a day. So that, he goes right to the depths at the same time that he says, you could do this. That is the significance, practical. You will feel more and more enthusiastic to chant. And then he gives evidence, so to say. He says, our boys and girls do that. So probably he had a few of the devotees with him on the stage. In the beginning, of course, you may not understand, but you take to this practice of chanting, you'll feel immediately transcendental pleasure. So he's kind of making a promise here. You do this, and there's no doubt that you will feel, this result. Then he goes on. I saw, although some of you could not join us in dancing and chanting, but you were from your seat, you were trying to dance. What does that mean? From your seat, you were trying to dance. Okay. I was trying to dance. That I have seen, he says, it is practical. We have seen even children, they immediately take to this dancing and chanting. So it is not very difficult, the most easy process of transcendental realization. We don't ask you to press your nose or put your head downwards or make some gymnastic. No. In whatever condition you are, it doesn't matter. You simply chant these 16 names. There is no secrecy. Now there's a context, there's a historical context here. Whether or not these students were aware, some of them might have been aware. There was a guru in India who was promoting a practice of meditation, and the mantras that were on offer from him were secret. And how could you get such mantra? You pay something. So Prabhupada is kind of anticipating that as an option. He's aware that these students have options in terms of meditation. There are different processes on offer. So he's advertising here. He's giving an advertisement. Ours is very easy. Anyone can do it. There's no charge. That's the next thing he says. He says, we are not charging any fees that, quote, you pay me so many dollars, I'll give you a secret mantra and you chant. No, it is open. It is distributed freely. Simply, you have to take it, that's all. The result will be, oh, great. And now he says, he's addressing students, and he's aware of this. He's such an expert preacher. He says, make an experiment. Because many of them may have been science students. Okay, make an experiment. You have no loss. You haven't got to pay anything. But if you take this, the result will be very, very great, which has no comparison in this world. That is practical. And he goes on. I'm really struck by some things he says here. So, result is, that is stated by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Okay, now he's going to give some background, what are the bona fides? What are the, what's the backup? What is the authority for this? That is stated by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who inaugurated this movement. You see this picture, and apparently there was a Panchatattva picture that everyone can see. He says, you see this picture, 5 learned brahmanas. 5 learned brahmanas, he says. Now that seems to be assuming that they know what a brahmana is. Somehow in Prabhupada and he's seeing all of his audience. I would argue he's seeing them all as Brahmins or potential Brahmins. 5 learned Brahmins. In the center, there is one picture who is Lord Chaitanya. He started this movement when he was only 17 years old. A boy only, a schoolboy. So he wants to suggest, because these are college students, they're most of them older than 17 years old, that, even younger than you, someone has started this movement. And he goes on that point. He was student, but he introduced this movement 500 years ago. And some of the elderly men, as you see, one elderly man with beard, referring to Advaita Acharya, he also helped him and the others. Actually, this movement was originally started by young boys. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Nityananda Prabhu, and Advaita Prabhu, they started. And there was a great agitation against them by the Brahmanas, priestly Brahmanas at that time. So now he launched it. He doesn't go further into this story, but of the resistance to Lord Chaitanya's Harinam Sankirtan, but he alludes to it. So Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu picked up these 16 words from Vedic literature. It is not that he manufactured anything. No, in the Vedic way, there is no question of manufacturing something, religious process, no. Just like you cannot manufacture law. So now he gives an example, an analogy. Just like you cannot manufacture law. In your state, privately, you cannot manufacture law. The law is given by the state. Similarly, any process for self-realization, you cannot manufacture. That is to be taken directly from God and his representatives. That is the verdict of Srimad Bhagavatam. Dharmang tu sakshat bhagavat pranitam. Real religious principles are enacted by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Well, I don't believe he said all of this. The translation is here in brackets. It says, real religious principles are enacted by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Although fully situated in the mode of goodness, even the great rishis who occupy the topmost planets cannot ascertain the real religious principles, nor can the demigods or the leaders of Siddhaloka, to say nothing of the asuras, ordinary human beings, vidyadharas, and charanas. When I first read this, I was thinking Prabhupada read out or spoke this translation, and I was thinking, oh, he's introducing demigods, asuras, vidyadharas, and charanas to these students. That's pretty amazing. But no, apparently not. But what he does do is, in the next line, he introduces Bhagavad Gita. In the Bhagavad Gita also, it is stated. So if you're not convinced by Srimad Bhagavatam, they've never heard of Srimad Bhagavatam, they have no idea what it is. And he doesn't even give the translation. He just says, Nate vidu svartagating hi Vishnu. Right, okay. So then he quotes Bhagavad Gita. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharat abhyutanam dharmasya tadatmanam srijamyaham. And he doesn't quote that verse. He doesn't translate that verse either. Well, he sort of partially, he says, whenever there's discrepancies in the religious principles, then the Lord says that I appear to establish the real purpose of religiosity. That is going on. So according to our Vedic principle, there is no question of so he's on this point. We're not manufacturing anything. So again, he says, there's no question of manufacturing a new type of religion. No. So Lord Chaitanya introduced this Hare Krishna movement, not that he manufactured something. No. Okay. And he's going to go on with authority, the authority of the tradition. He quotes Agni Purana. He says there are 18 Puranas. There's another Purana called the Brahma Vaivarta Purana, and then he refers to this age. He says, in this age of Kali. So again, picture students, they haven't the slightest clue about anything that's going on, and now he's got Bhagavad Gita and Dharmantu Sakshat, and now he's saying, in this age of Kali, what is this? But he's inviting them, just chant Hare Krishna, it's free of charge, make an experiment, you're gonna like it. And this is his very forward sort of what Prabhupada called preaching. Now somewhere, I don't know if I'll find it. Oh, here it is. Yes. How I found this this particular lecture, I was searching, as one does nowadays. I was searching the phrase, "I came to your country." Prabhupada uses that phrase several times in his talks. So later in this lecture, he says, this possibility is there simply by chanting these 16 words. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. This is possible. This is practical. Since I came to your country in 1965, ... Of course, for 1 year, I was traveling here and there. But in 1966, I established first my class in New York at 26 2nd Avenue. Incidentally, who's been to 26 2nd Avenue? Many of you. 26 2nd Avenue used to have a gas station next door. That's no longer there. Now there's a, I don't know how many stories building that's toe to toe, elbow to elbow with 26 2nd. But 26 2nd Avenue is still there. Yeah, and programs are still going on there. Then there are many branches now. We have got about 16 branches all over your country. And these students, they are chanting and they are taking to the austerity. Prabhupada introduces the austerity. But also he's doing something that he would do a lot, especially in India, is he would boast. He would boast about the success of his mission. Sometimes he would say, we are distributing hundreds of thousands of books. Sometimes he would say, we are bringing in $100,000 a day, right? Something like that. Because for the Indians, this is like, oh, he's not just a beggar. Okay, maybe we should listen to him. But here he's a little bit, not bragging, but he's saying, don't think I'm just a beginning upstart. We have something established, it's serious, you can take this seriously. And then what does he say? He says, I don't accept any cheap student or cheap disciple. And here it comes. Hold on to your seats, students. My first condition is that there is no illicit sex life. There is no intoxication. There is no gambling, and there is no meat eating. You can imagine half the audience standing up and leaving. These 4 principles are there. But all my students in these about 16 centers, one in London, one in Germany, but you will be surprised that all these boys and girls, they have taken to this austerity very seriously. They're not drinking even tea or smoking a cigarette. And then he says, and then I'll end and invite my godbrothers to speak. So, spiritual life does not mean a whimsical life. It is, first of all, basic principle is that building character. In the Bhagavad Gita, you will find that when Arjuna is accepting Lord Krishna, he is saying that, quote, Param Brahma, Param Dhamma, Pavitram, Paramam Bhavan. And he doesn't translate that verse. He paraphrases, my dear Lord Krishna, You are the most purest, most pure. Param Brahma, Param Dhamma. You are the Supreme Lord. You are pure. So, idea is that if you want to have spiritual life, you have also to become pure. Without being pure, that pureness, this evolution means gradual process of purifying process. And it goes on, the lecture, but you can listen to it yourselves. This is from April 29th, 1969 in Boston. So I just thought this is a nice way to enter into appreciating, remembering Srila Prabhupada today. Hare Krishna.
I can go. You hold it in there. I was with Prabhupada a month before he left in Vrindavan. We were doing the same thing that we're doing now at the BI, a conference on science and Bhagavatam. And we were doing the Life Comes from Life conference. So Prabhupada at that point had become very ill. I hadn't hardly eaten in months, really, anything. Had become skin and bones. He had a particular ailment. I don't need to go into that, but the question was, would Prabhupada stay with us or go? And Prabhupada had flown to London because he wanted to die on the battlefield, and he was going to go to Gitanagari to establish some details of Varnashram. And when he got to London, they realized his visa had expired one day earlier, because he had a green card. You had to be in America once a year, and this was the 366th day. So Balavanta, local devotee here, ran around as hard as he could, and he actually got the visa. But by then, the doctors in London had concluded, and Prabhupada's entourage, that his chances of living, at least by normal medical calculations, were very slim. So Prabhupada flew back to Vrindavan. And when he got to Vrindavan, various Kavirajas, Ayurvedic doctors, would come give this or that medicine. But it became clear Prabhupada was going to go, was going to leave. So devotees were very upset, and they said to Prabhupada, we can't be without you. I mean, at that time in the movement, there was hardly anybody over 30. And the hippie motto was, don't trust anyone over 30. So, and there just was hardly anybody. I mean, maybe I think Satsvarup was 33 or something, old man. And we had basically given up our families, given everything. Prabhupada was our guru, our father, just everything. And so then Prabhupada did something very clever. It was so brilliant. I meditate on this all the time. Devotees went to Prabhupada, you can't leave. Now, do we ever demand of Krishna? Well, the answer is yes, we do. We pray a lot. But what prayer do you pray? You don't, you want Krishna's will. So Prabhupada came up with the most clever prayer. And he said, well, because he knew we want to pray. And you can pray, my dear Lord Krishna, if you so desire, keep Prabhupada with us. What a perfect prayer. Because we're yielding to Krishna's will, but we're expressing our heartfelt desire. Because we have to express that. So Prabhupada gave us that. When I went, so that was September 1977, Prabhupada went to back to Vrindavan. October, mid-October, I went to India for the Life Comes from Life conference. Sri Damodar had asked me to come and speak at the conference on a science topic. And I was thinking, how would I ever get to India? But Krishna is miraculous this way. So I went to see my boss, and I said, I need 1 week off because I had 2 weeks vacation and it'd take 3 weeks. I need a week off without pay to go to, I said, a Peace Corps reunion. He wouldn't understand. He said, India. Oh, I was a geologist. They're putting up some leases for bid. We'll give you the week off with pay. We'll give you $1,000. You take the company jet to New York. So it was Krishna. So then on the plane, we landed in Tehran. That was when Iran was very American friendly, Pan Am flight stops. And I immediately call up one of my best friends, Atreya Rishi. And, hey, I'm in Tehran on the way to India. And they said, oh, he left this morning for India. He's gone. I never thought that my plane was 5 hours late, and he was on that plane. So when I got off, I saw him, and we immediately went to Vrindavan. It was, again, Krishna magic. It was miraculous. And because he was GBC, I was able to get right into Prabhupada's room. And otherwise, it might not be possible. So I get in Prabhupada's room, and Prabhupada is there, skin and bones. Not that Prabhupada, like on the Vyasa-san that we all knew, and he had dark glasses on in a darkened room because any light would be painful. And we walk in, and he sees Atreya's in front of me, and he sees on Atreya's face this look of, what happened? And Prabhupada starts laughing. Really laughing. And he says, look, I've been telling you 1,000 times I'm not this body. I'm living in my bones now. Will you finally believe me? And it was, we were like astounded. And Prabhupada, it was a painful position he had, but Prabhupada thought it was extremely funny. Many times, we don't understand Prabhupada's humor. When I look back and listen to things, Prabhupada was a lot funnier than because of the generation difference and cultural difference that we know. But many, many funny things he said. When my wife first met him, she wasn't a devotee at all, just met him, fiance met him. And she asked a question and he answered in English. Fine English, I understood it, but she couldn't understand the accent. And he turns to me and goes, translate. So then we did this science conference, and Prabhupada couldn't go to the conference. He was definitely too ill to go. But there was a bust of him that was made, a really beautiful one. At one time was actually in Gainesville. No idea what happened. And he said, every day you take the bust of me and just put on, just my presence there in some way. And at night he'd call us in his room, and he wanted our Sankirtan scores. Now, Bhaktivedanta Institute Sankirtan scores are different. There are arguments. What did they say? Because we had some very prominent scientists in the courtyard of the Vrindavan temple, the Gurukul at Vrindavan. And what did you say? And they wanted to know, Prabhupada wanted to know what arguments were given. And could we stand up to the scientists, give arguments that life comes from life? And they had one story which Prabhupada seemed to like, so I'll share it. One Indian man was there, and he thought he was going to get the Nobel Prize. In my mind, there's a reverse Nobel Prize for the stupidest thing done called the Ig Nobel. And in my opinion, he was a candidate for the Ig Nobel Prize. But he thought he was going to get the Nobel Prize. So he, these little toys kids have, liquid crystals, you touch it and many colors come out. So that can explain the entropy problem of how life can come from matter. Anyway, some really silly theory. So he gives this talk. At the end of his talk, and Prabhupada liked the story. At the end of his talk, people raise their hands. And one lady's raising her hand, he won't call on her Finally, everyone else is called upon. And he has no choice but to call upon her. So she stands up, faces the audience, says, I want you to know that my husband up there who's saying all this nonsense, he goes every night, he goes and does artik. That can only happen in India, I assure you. And Prabhupada also appreciated these stories. Every night we give him the Sankirtan. And then we sadly got to say goodbye. And with that prayer in our heart, what really sustained us, my dear Lord Krishna, if you so desire, keep Prabhupada with us. And that prayer purified all of us. So when Prabhupada left, there was such a void on one hand. On the other hand, it didn't touch our faith in Krishna at all. So thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Just briefly wanted to say, just very subjectively, when Srila Prabhupada was physically present with us, we were all like little grandchildren, knowing that Grandpa is always there and will always solve any problem. I think that was the biggest difference I have perceived in those days and these days, that there was no issue, there was no problem, there was no difficulty that he could not resolve. And so we all felt so very safe, protected, and confident. And after his departure, we had to adjust. We're still adjusting. But the beautiful thing is that what Srila Prabhupada gave us lives on. And Srila Prabhupada's mission lives on, and it is as viable today as ever, in spite of his physical absence. And that's why he left these books and these lectures, and the biography is there, so everyone can know Srila Prabhupada. 53 memoirs. And they keep coming. Govinda Dasi's just released a really nice one, yeah. So that was my subjective experience being a young man in Prabhupada's presence. It was kind of like being with Jesus, just seeing from afar and not comprehending at all. And now in my declining years, appreciating how Srila Prabhupada did what he did at this stage of life. Yes, and how superhuman that was. So thank you for being his followers. Thank you for learning about him, bringing him into your life. You will not ever regret that decision.
I object
Beg your pardon.
Present company accepted.
Never felt so young.
Druta Karma Prabhu, would you like to share some realization?
Oh, I had the microphone to tell one more quick story. So Prabhupada would call us in at night to his room, and he couldn't see well. And his secretary, Tamal Krishna Goswami, said, Prabhupada, your scientists are here. And we're all wearing suits and ties, the 5 of us. And he said, they're here. Prabhupada immediately said, get them chairs. And at that time, we were a floor society. We didn't have knee problems that do come in our declining years. So somebody found 2 chairs. So two of us sat on one chair, 2 on another, and then one of us went like this. Prabhupada could see that. Well, we didn't know what to do. Okay.
You people are absolutely ruining my observance of Srila Prabhupada's disappearance. You are really wrecking it because you're following his instructions, you're chanting, you're dancing, you're really feel Srila Prabhupada's presence. So this is very, very disturbing. But I mean, it said, the grandfather is more kind to the grandchildren than his own children. So you're really manifesting that. So I was always sort of feeling separation from Srila Prabhupada even when he was here. I was fortunate enough to see him and hear him give class a few times, but I never had a personal exchange with him. So even when he was present, I had learned to associate with him through his books. And it's something I do every day. I study Srila Prabhupada's books every day, a certain amount of time. And it's really is like associating with him personally, if you see it in that way. You know, that he himself said, I'm present in my books. So even devotees who come into this movement, second generation, third generation, fourth generation, they can make and keep a connection with Srila Prabhupada by studying his books, following his instructions. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much. Yes, Prabhupada's Disappearance Day. In one sense, of course, we could celebrate the passing of a Vaishnava, going back to Krishna, having achieved incredible service on behalf of Krishna and Lord Chaitanya. But for the devotees, it's tough. Remembering the loss of our spiritual master. So for us, it's an observation, of the occasion. It's a particular type of meditation. And at Bhaktivedanta Manor, where I was stationed, we were very fortunate that being London and being a center that he had spent so much energy, particularly he spent 3 months there in 1973, when we first were given the property and installing the deities. He really kind of was giving a lot of attention to how it was set up and running. So he was coming each year, and we had been used to seeing Prabhupada in his, full vigor. Prabhupada wasn't large; he was quite short, but his presence filled the space, and there was an effulgence, and the way he moved was just graceful. It would appear that he was floating. Every single movement that he made was just, really special. I remember in one darshan watching him eating a piece of mango, and it wasn't like how I might do, gobble, gobble, He was eating from the skin of the mango, just taking his time, and it just went on, and not one drop of juice spilled. It was mesmerizing. So this was our Srila Prabhupada. So when he came, we heard that Prabhupada was coming in 1977. We were amazed. This was the summer of 77, just a few months before he passed, because we knew his health had been precarious, and we couldn't believe that he was coming to the West. But he was doing that to encourage us. On the plane flight over, it stopped in Rome. He was traveling economy, and there was a 4-hour delay just sitting on the plane on the runway or tarmac at Rome. And Tamal Krishna Maharaj, who was with Prabhupada, felt, how is Prabhupada coping with all of this? Because Prabhupada was not actually able to move a muscle practically. The bones were touching the skin. The doctors who examined him in London said any ordinary person would be screaming in pain with this, because the bones are pressing against the nerves constantly. Prabhupada was just sitting with full composure. So Tamal Krishna Maharaj says, when we get to London, the devotees will be so pleased to see you. He was trying to give encouragement. And Prabhupada just said, yes, it is good that we have come. And as Maharaj said, he would quote this, I have come to your country. And this was Prabhupada's intention, to come back to the West, to give one last set of instructions, guidance, and encouragement that we can all take. So here's just a few little things that I learned from Prabhupada during that particular visit. Prabhupada would be spending a lot of time in his room, very quiet. But he would call our local GBC and temple president. He would call them, come quickly. So the servant would rush around, find Chaitya and Vichitaviriya, bring them up. We wondered, what was Prabhupada going to ask? What was he going to tell us? And Prabhupada said, so how were the cows? One thing that Prabhupada was very concerned for, how were the cows? Another time he called, they came running. Are the devotees getting nice prasadam? And if it was here in Gainesville, he'd be saying, are the students getting nice prasadam? He would have asked. You can be sure. So important. And then when Prabhupada would come down each day, we would carry him on a palanquin. And the Vyasan was pushed a little bit back in its little alcove, and the palanquin was placed in front of it. And Prabhupada would be sitting there, and Mr. Krishna Maharaj said, the jet set Prabhupada with the big dark sunglasses, and he'd be sitting there practically motionless. He asked us not to sing the Guru Puja song, because the emotions shared between disciple and spiritual master are so strong that it was difficult for his body to contain that. So we just chanted Hare Krishna. And the Kirtan was pretty wild. We had devotees that come from all over Europe, particularly the Germans, who were the biggest distributor in the world. You were there. And different devotees remember this slightly differently. But the Kirtan was going on, and Prabhupada was just sitting there watching. And then he made a movement with his hand. And I said, different devotees have described it differently. My recollection is he did this. Just that. And of course the devotees understood what that meant. I just hit the ceiling. And then this huge smile came across Prabhupada, just amazing. So that's my take from that is, if you really want to please Prabhupada in Kirtan, off the floor. Kirtan begins when you defy gravity. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. I wrote something because on these days I try to report to Prabhupada in terms of what I'm doing with what's left of my life. So with the devotee's permission, I could read that. Should only take a minute or two. And it does relate to Prabhupada's disappearance. Okay. I'll lean forward so I can see. In November 1977, just hours before your departure, you were lying in your bed in Vrindavan, surrounded by a few disciples. You had not eaten a decent meal in several months and had reduced your intake to nil. Your body was basically skin and bones. When you spoke, your jaw barely moved. Your voice was barely above a whisper. A microphone was held above your mouth to capture this Bhaktivedanta purport, which I call your departing gift. By hearing, by discussing Srimad Bhagavatam, this Rajaguna, Tamaguna are subdued. Then Sattva Guna remains. Nasta Praheshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Then Rajaguna, Tamaguna cannot do us harm. Therefore, Varnashrama Dharma is so essential that people live in Sattva Guna. Tamoguna, Rajaguna increases lust and greediness, and that implicates the living entity who exists in this material world in many, many forms. Therefore, they should be brought into Sattva Guna by the establishment of Varnashrama Dharma. On this occasion of your divine disappearance, I'd like to give you a report on the activities of the Institute for Advanced Social Design. As you know, the Institute is working to promote your mission of reestablishing Varnashrama. To date, we have held over 20 training sessions where we have discussed your instructions with a view to implementation. These discussions have been enlightening, revealing, and motivating. Participants have come away determined to move forward with this mission. Here are the plans that we are envisioning for the near future. Your instructions in the book speaking about Varnashrama are being reformatted for Amazon print on demand. This will allow anyone to have access to a print copy of this important book. Having a printed copy will be a requirement for participating in the upcoming certification courses that will be taught by the Institute. The Speaking About Varnashrama book will be the basis of a certification in advanced social design. We hope that this training will encourage your followers to present Varnashrama with increasing clarity, with reference to your instructions, and with reference to your desire for its revival. Also planned is a book trailer to promote and reintroduce Speaking About Varnashrama to ISKCON, since most of your followers have not read it. We are envisioning reaching the entire English-speaking part of ISKCON. Hari Krishna Dasi, who compiled the original Speaking About Varnashrama, has agreed to compile a second volume, which will deal with Brahmanas and Kshatriyas. I'm working with her on another book idea, 4 Simple Steps to Reestablish Varnashrama, which will be based on the simplest set of your instructions in Shastra. Our most ambitious endeavor is by the second quarter of next year to have an online school of Kshatriya training, starting with your instructions and proceeding through other resources as directed by you. This could be a game changer in reestablishing Varnashrama. All of this is important in the mission of spreading Krishna consciousness as envisioned by you. During the years 1974 through your departure on this day in 1977, you patiently instructed your followers on the importance of Varnashrama. At that time, we did not understand your vision, so we asked off-topic questions and even argued its relevance. And today, largely, we're still doing the same. I ask that you bless me with the patient determination needed to carry on this work. Much remains to be done in this challenging pursuit. By your mercy, we expect to be successful in this endeavor. Falling at your feet and begging to be engaged, we remain your servant.
Now, let's like to invite many of our newer students just to briefly share your realizations of what it's like to be a follower of Srila Prabhupada at this time in history. Would anyone like to offer a few remarks from your own perspective?
Hare Krishna. Yeah, I didn't have anything prepared to say, so I'm just thinking on the spot. But yeah, to see, it's said that Jai Shri Krishna, all of Prabhupada's disciples and all of the different personalities are like reflections of different qualities of Srila Prabhupada, and they manifest different aspects of Srila Prabhupada's teachings, and I can really see that. Like Srila Prabhupada was so, I mean, he's our founder, Acharya, he's everything, and you know, as and his disciples all have some part of that. And if we look at the differences, we might be bewildered. Like sometimes there's different opinions and there's just different ways of viewing things. But when we look at the whole picture and what ISKCON is meant for, then we see Srila Prabhupada. We see Srila Prabhupada through his disciples, through their various ways of preaching and relating to the devotees that they're trying to cultivate. And also I wanted to say that for me, I've been reading more of Srila Prabhupada's books lately, and that has it's definitely something that I would recommend to everybody to read, like a specific amount of time per day, like Prabhu was saying. It's life-changing, and makes us feel very connected to Prabhupada and to this movement.
Anyone else?
Hare Krishna. For me, being a follower of Srila Prabhupada means having a more independent mind and perspective than I ever thought was possible. I think all of us, to some extent, try to understand who we are and what our place is in the world and how we relate to other people, and try to find an answer that satisfies us so that we can live our lives satisfied that we are really ourselves. But when I found Srila Prabhupada, it helped me see that there were even more layers, sort of like, you think you're looking out into the world and seeing the world clearly, and then you realize you're looking through a window and it's a little bit smudged, and then you just kind of keep repeating that process and understanding that actually when you thought that you were being yourself and you were being independently minded and doing what you wanted in the world, that wasn't actually true. That for various reasons you're always constrained by conditioning, by society, and these kinds of things. And Srila Prabhupada's example, and the way he was so independent, and the way that he really was a force to be reckoned with, and that he was able to stand all alone by himself, and do what he really thought would be right for the world, and everybody seeing that power that he had, and understanding that you can also do that too, and what you need to do is to keep digging and to keep understanding your conditioning, and then when you're afraid that nobody will stand by you, you can remember that Krishna is there. So that is a wonderful example, and that's something that I try to follow in my own life.
Thank you very much, Christina, Prema, and I'm sure there'd be more if we had time. I just want to conclude by giving my heartfelt thanks to Vaninath Prabhu, Prakhanadi Prabhu, Jyotirkarma Karma Prabhu, Brahmatirtha Prabhu, and Krishna Kshetra Maharaj. Thank you for sharing this day with us here in Krishna House. I think Prema nailed it when she was explaining how, yes, every one of Prabhupada's disciples represents a certain quality of him. As Christina was pointing out, this is the actual nature of Krishna consciousness, though it may appear homogeneous. The devotees are quite individual in their realizations and applications of their connection with Krishna. And that legacy of Srila Prabhupada belongs to us all. So with that, I hope you have a wonderful day remembering Srila Prabhupada on this occasion and serving him under the direction of Advaitacharya Prabhu, those who are going, and University of Florida, to the others who are not. And is there a special program this evening, or we're going to Alachua this evening at 5 p.m. Okay, so everyone can join us for that as well. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Shri Gaur Nitai ki jai. Sadhu Sangha ki jai.